So today, we're going to dive into the surprising link between two absolute icons of American culture. On one hand, you've got a poet whose words we all know, and on the other, a songwriter who basically wrote the soundtrack for a revolution. Let's get into it.
I know, right? On the surface, they seem like they're from different planets. Robert Frost, the quiet, thoughtful poet of New England, and Bob Dylan, the raw voice of a generation's protest. But what if their work has this deep, shared DNA that tells us something really important about America? Well, that's the big question we're digging into here. So let's just set the stage real quick. You've got Frost, a master at exploring these huge philosophical ideas through the simple lens of everyday rural life. And then you have Dylan, who grabbed folk and blues traditions and just lit them on fire with this poetic, supercharged social commentary. I mean, we're talking about two totally different worlds with two very different megaphones. Okay, let's just address the elephant in the room. Are we really comparing a classic poet to a rock star? It might sound like a bit of a stretch at first, but stick with me because the connection goes way deeper than just their job titles. Here's the thing, and this is the key. It doesn't matter what their medium was. Frost and Dylan were basically on the same mission. They were both obsessed with exploring the messy, complicated, fundamental stuff about what it means to be human, who we are, what we owe each other, and where we fit in this crazy world. But to really get their connection, we first have to talk about how different they were. So let's start there, by looking at the very different tools and rules that each of them played by. You know, Frost was a real master of the classics. He loved structure, loved using meter and rhyme to build this incredible sense of control and balance. Dylan, though, he took poetry and threw it on stage, pumping it full of the raw, live energy of folk and blues. His art wasn't just meant to be read on a page, it was meant to be heard, to be felt. Just listen to this from Frost. That steady rhythm, the clean rhymes, it just pulls you into this incredibly calm, quiet moment. You can almost feel the chill in the air as the traveler just stops to watch the snow. See how that structure makes you feel that quiet? And now, bam! Contrast that with Dylan. He uses this genius structure. Ask a huge question, then hit you with that unforgettable refrain. It's built for music, designed to get in your head, to build that emotion, and to get an entire generation singing along, asking those same urgent questions. And this actually gets at something really core to Frost's whole philosophy, something he called the sound of sense. He believed a poem shouldn't just be words. It should sound like a person's thoughts, like natural speech. And that's his magic trick, right? That's how he took this formal, structured poetry and made it feel like he was just talking right to you. Okay, so we've looked at their different toolkits, but now for the really cool part. This is where we see how, despite all that, Frost and Dylan were kind of speaking the same poetic language. And this chart, wow, it just lays it all out for us. Just look at these parallels. They both use lyricism, sure, but Frost is calm and reflective, while Dylan is all musical energy. Both are incredible storytellers, but Frost gives us these simple, quiet moments, and Dylan gives us epic ballads. Let's zoom in on a couple of these, because this is where it gets good. So both guys were huge on symbolism, but they went about it in totally different ways. Frost's symbols are grounded right in nature. Two roads in a wood. We all get that, right? Big life choice. It's instantly relatable. Dylan's symbols were often way more abstract, almost dreamlike. The Joker and the thief, they're not real people. They're more like these vibes of chaos and the feeling that something big is about to break. And what all this really points to are these huge, universal themes that they were both wrestling with. This is their common ground. Both of them force us to ask the big questions. Who am I? What should I do? What does it even mean to be free? I mean, these are the questions that make their work completely timeless. All right, now this might be the most fascinating difference between them, how they approached social commentary. You can really think of it as the difference between a whisper and a shout. Look, Frost definitely had things to say about society, but he was subtle about it, exploring big ideas through these quiet metaphors. He makes you think without ever pointing a finger. Dylan, especially in the 60s, was the complete opposite. He was in your face, critical, and was pretty much kicking down the doors of the status quo. Take a poem like Frost's Fire and Ice. Now, he's not literally talking about global warming here. He's making this profound point about us, about human nature, that our own passions, our desire, and our hatred are the most destructive forces on Earth. It's a huge critique of society, but it's wrapped in this philosophical package. And then you have Dylan.
And yeah, there is absolutely nothing subtle about that question. It's a straight-up moral challenge to all of us about war. He's not just asking, he's shouting. He's demanding we find an answer. And that very song, Blowing in the Wind, it became the anthem. It perfectly captured the entire spirit of the 1960s. It was about the struggle for civil rights, it questioned the morality of the Vietnam War, and it called people out for just standing by and doing nothing. It literally became the voice for a generation that was screaming for change. So, okay, we've looked at how they're different, how they're alike. So what does it all mean? What can we say about their legacies? And how do these two voices come together in the bigger story of American art? At the end of the day, yeah, their methods were totally different. A poem versus a song, a whisper versus a shout, but their goal was pretty much the same. Both of them were master craftsmen using their art to help us all make sense of the beautiful, complicated, and often confusing business of being alive. And you can see how their influence just ripples outward, right? This idea of using art to question the world, it didn't stop with them. Think about John Lennon's Imagine. It's asking for the same kind of peace and reflection that you find in both Frost and Dylan's work. It shows how these two powerful ways of using art, the quiet reflection and the loud call for change, are still so important in helping us figure out our world.
So that leaves us with this final thought, this one last question to chew on. Who really speaks louder in the long run? The quiet poet, whose ideas sort of seep into your soul over time? Or the protest singer, whose shouts demand you pay attention right now? But maybe the answer isn't about who's louder. Maybe it's that we absolutely need both, the whisper and the shout, to really understand the whole story.